23 липня працює.
In July 23, Ukraine Media Center starts its operation. My name is Svetlana Shaparenko, and now we will discuss the energy sector updates, preparing for the upcoming heating season. And joining us in the studio is Oleksandr Kharchenko, Director of the Energy Industry Research Center. Good afternoon, Mr. Oleksandr. Good afternoon. Now we're almost through the second month of the year. Well, some of the hottest periods are already behind us without any power shutdowns, at least without planned power shutdowns. This summer looks more optimistic than the previous one. So what is your assessment of the condition of the power grid? Well, basically what we were talking about previously, it's happening now already, that we should be passing this summer in a managed way, and it includes a lot of components. First of all, we take into account the experience of the past year when the attacks and the results of the massive strikes were overlapping with the maintenance and repairs of the reactors of the nuclear power plants that created problems. However, this year, the protection of the energy facilities works way better, and at the same time, the maintenance schedule was put together in the way to mitigate that effect that it's produced on the system during previous years. And what's important, a lot more facilities were restored and recommissioned. Many energy generating facilities were recommissioned and are back in operation. Another important component is the fact of installation of a lot of solar panels by the businesses and by the individuals who try to reduce the cost of the consumed power and add to the energy security. And now it's even difficult to evaluate what is the number of solar panels and what is their total capacity. I mean, when it comes to individual consumers. And it's really difficult to do such an assessment, because when it comes to customs information about the amount of imported equipment, it's not quite adequate, because it's no secret for anybody. There were periods where the trucks were coming to small villages, and over there that equipment was disseminated almost on spot, like hand in hand, in exchange for cash, maybe. So we expect to see some audit of the solar capacities shortly. However, the total amount of consumption in the grid demonstrates that there was a significant amount of power added. The situation is way, way better than it used to be a year ago. And what's also important, that intense work is still underway. It's noticeable, and it's aiming at bringing the aerial networks into regime of readiness to the new attacks, as well as other power grid facilities. Well, still, there are shutdowns. They're being also added by the bad weather, and given the conditions of the power grid, I wouldn't be overly optimistic. We need 7 to 9 years to bring the power grid into that condition, when only some serious acts of elements can bring them into the inoperable condition. But still, the system is fragile. Some of the equipment is not in a very good condition, and I don't even delve deeper into the analysis of the situation in the frontline regions. The situation there is really sad. So this is where we stand at the point of power generation. Well, last year we were saying that the most difficult regions are Kyiv and Odessa, I mean, apart from the frontline regions. So what is the situation for the time being? The enemy was quite active in using their weapons in Odessa region lately. What is the situation over there? Well, both Kyiv and Odessa remain fragile. At the same time, in both Kyiv and Odessa, if you ask me where the works are the most intense to reinforce the generation component, to do as much as possible to reinforce the power grid, I would say it's still Kyiv and Odessa. And at the same time, when it comes to Kyiv, Kyiv is doing just the equal amount of works that the rest of Ukraine is doing all together. I mean, the amount and the intensity of works is comparable to the rest of Ukraine. It's good. It's good because in Kyiv we have a gigantic deficit of electric power, and that problem is supposed to be solved. At the same time, would it be sufficient for this year? No, it won't. We still need 2 to 3 years to survive with this fragile power grid, to bring the new equipment, to get it connected, to commission it. There's still a lot of work to be done. And at the same time, for what I understand, there's a lot of work to be done in the western regions because of the relocation of the businesses, because of the relocation of a lot of Ukrainians. That's true. There's a lot of new manufacturing facilities, new businesses. And now it's very clear that the western regions are not making it. Now we're seeing the deficit of connections, deficit of access to gas, to the power grid, and that's yet another problem that we will need to solve. It's impossible to solve it with a magic stick. It takes years of work, but it's the work that needs to be done. Did we ask our European colleagues for import this year? Well, now the situation is completely commercial. We don't need any emergency aid. That is very good. That's the evidence of a healthy situation in the power grid. We're not taking any emergency aid, and both imports and exports. And during the month of intense sunshine, the exports are more than imports, and they are being on commercial basis. I mean, when the electricity is cheaper in Europe, we import it from Europe. Then when it's cheaper in Ukraine, they buy it from us. We export, and it's quite intense. And the export is quite intense, and it humbles me. It's really good that we're living in this normal commercial regime. The situation is still unstable with the generation in general, and it would be lie to say that there are no threats to us energy security, but those threats are not so present as they used to be a year ago or even 10 months ago. The situation is way more secure, way more stable, and we're really being better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that in case of massive attacks on coal and gas generation, that we wouldn't end up in a crisis situation. Yes, we could. That's a huge threat, but there's a lot of work underway to minimize that threat. The summer is the traditional period of maintenance in nuclear power plants. Are they still underway? What is the situation in nuclear power plants?
According to the reports, we see that the works are ongoing, the schedules are followed. There is always some kind of deviations, however, nothing critical there. What happens is that there is a control that's exercised by the MAGATE. We didn't see any kind of negative comments on the work of the energy domain, and if it's going to be okay if it keeps like that. You already mentioned that we need at least a few more years to repair the damages. What do you see now? Will the energetic system be even maybe stronger than it was before the war? Well, I'm not a prophet. I can't really predict this precisely. What is going to happen with the number of drones that are produced nowadays? If the attacks will be conducted that are aiming exclusively against the energy sector, energy domain. And if it will lead to construction of another protection layer around the territory of Ukraine, it means that it just enters the escalation cycle, and it is really hard to predict how this cycle will end. If we talk about the scheduled preparations for the cold season, I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it's good. It's good. It's B plus basically. And if we do everything as it's supposed to be done, then we get the results that we are expecting. However, I have to say that we do have a problem with the natural gas, and we can see that the Russian terrorists are actually organizing strikes against sources of production of natural gas on the territory of Ukraine. So they're deliberately targeting the places of extraction of natural gas resources. And when we enter if we enter the season with the empty reservoirs, which is actually a big question for the Naftogaz company. The new team that is in charge of Naftogaz, we can see that they are actually quite effective. We can see it by such parameters as the amount of finance they received, how much they spent, how much they achieved during the reporting period, and we can see that we are lagging we're lagging our target by around 30%, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but if this lag will not be overlapped and filled, then we will have to buy additional natural gas from abroad, and for that, Naftogaz Ukraine needs money again, and for that, the government will need to lower interest rates in the banking system to basically support and sustain the operation of this company on the market, and it is also quite ambiguous how exactly those exclusions or exceptions for the Naftogaz Ukraine will be implemented, because there is no precedented mechanisms for that, and we also do have a list of difficult technical decisions pertaining to how exactly we are planning to engage additional funds, and these measures will help us receive the gas that we require. However, it always comes with a price, and it will be very difficult in the winter. So if we are analyzing the natural gas in the big scheme of things, it can the gaps in production of the natural gas may lead to the energy sector malfunctioning, and I really can't comment. Right now, we have our government changed just recently. This load can it lead to the prices of the gas for the population? I don't think that such measures will help anybody, because what needs to be done is a complex reformation of the energy sector. Without this transition to these markets, we will not survive. That's a fact. If we do not make electrical energy accessible for the whole for all the users of the energy sector in Ukraine, it will just mean that it will lead as a butterfly effect to many difficult consequences across many different fields. So I could try and lay out the technical details, but I don't think they will be interesting right now, because they are very special technical numbers. And thank you, Mr. Oleksandr. We were talking about the situation in the energy sector. Our team is working on the schedule for later. Stay with us.